I'm here to share with you today the worst exercise advice I have ever heard. Now, I'm my undergraduate in Human Kinetics, my master's degree in exercise physiology. This is my work, this is my business, and this is stuff that I take really seriously. Of course, as someone who's one of the world's strongest men, I know a thing or two about exercise, but of course I have the background educationally as well. And this is the worst advice that I have ever heard.
Just quick little tip, deadlifts. If you're deadlifting to be a better deadlifter, fine. If you're not doing that for deadlift's sake, then don't fucking do it. The risk to reward ratio is a joke.
Now, before I get stuck into it, my opinion isn't just that we should do any exercise in the gym. My opinion is also that everyone should be in the gym, and the Lift Heavy Be Kind brand is a large part of how I want to put that into the world. We've released some bundles where you can save on certain packages of items. If you want to check that out, go ahead on lhbk.shop. And if you have nothing to say, or you're just watching the video and you want to support the channel in the smallest way, go ahead and leave a comment of any sort to help the algorithm along. And let's talk about why deadlifts are actually a pretty damn good exercise. Now, before you agree or disagree, let me just go through why this is so bad. First of all, there are 6 fundamental movement patterns that the human body can go through. We have push, pull, squat, carry, hinge, and overhead press. If you can do those 6 things, you are ready to live life. You're also ready to win a strongman show. You're ready to be a productive member of society. You're ready to support your family, move your house, whatever you need to do. If any one of those 6 becomes a problem, that's where we have a level of disability, whether that's a legitimate disability or a disability short-term caused by pain. You are not able to do a certain function. Now, this advice is taking one of those fundamental movement patterns, which is the hinge, and essentially saying this is not something that we should do. Now, it's not as cut and dry as that because the deadlift is one of the highest injury risk exercises at the gym. So it does make sense, sort of, to say, well, let's look at this and let's not do it and do something else instead. My rebuttal to that is, what else? What else are we going to do instead? How else are we going to train the hinge pattern? And I would argue that we don't have high incidence of injury risk during deadlifts because of deadlifts, but because of deadlifts executed poorly. I'll pop a link in the description to a free core bracing PDF. And look, we have 3 areas where we can protect our low back when it comes to deadlifting, when it comes to hinging, comes to squatting, anything. Number 1 is intra-abdominal pressure, and creating a good core brace is the biggest problem that most people face when trying to avoid low back injury. Number 2 is the strength of our spinal erectors. I'm going to go through some research in a minute, but that is a very important element to protecting your low back. And number 3 is the soft tissues of your low back. And of course, we don't want to rely on these. That's where we get to injury risk. Let's talk about low back pain in general, and we're going to dive into the research afterwards. In 2020, 619 million people were affected by low back pain, and it's the leading cause of disability. Now, you might think that this is because of disc bulges or herniations or slip discs or pinched nerves or whatever it may be, but the number 1 far and away diagnosis when it comes to low back pain is non-specific lower back pain, aka imaging shows nothing, assessment shows nothing, your back is sore and we don't know why. Now, when it comes to exercises, here's a study here, and it is called Effect of an Exercise Program that Includes Deadlifts on Low Back Pain. So now we're going to talk about not does it cause low back pain, but can it treat low back pain? And arguably, if it can treat low back pain, then it's unlikely to be causing the low back pain. In this study, it said deadlifts are not necessary, but can be useful in low back pain rehab. The one point that they noted is that it is particularly useful for people with back extensor strength to some reasonable degree. This is where context is important. If you're someone who cannot maintain your posture at all when you go down to pick something up off the ground because you have weak spinal erectors, well, deadlifts are going to be a bad exercise for you. But it's a bad exercise for you because you can't execute the exercise. You can't do it safely and properly. And that's the overarching opinion. That's the overarching principle on what exercises you should choose. And you should aim to then learn the exercises that you can't do, particularly if it's a fundamental movement pattern. On the flip side, if you're very strong and you start doing body weights, dead bugs, and drinking birds, and arabesques, and all of these body weight exercises that practice and cue your hinging, well, to cause some sort of physiological adaptation, it's going to be next to impossible to get your tissues to adapt to anything that is so low compared to your personal 1 rep max. I will point out in this study, when they said deadlifts aren't necessary, they pointed to other bodyweight hinging exercises. And so really, this whole study is a bit of a nothing burger to say that you should learn to hinge if your back is in pain, and you should learn to hinge without weight if you're not strong enough to handle weight, and you should hinge with weight if you are strong enough to handle weight. It sort of goes without saying. Now, we have another study here. Which patients with low back pain benefit from deadlift training? This specifically looked at the populations, and it echoed the results of the previous study. This said that back extensor strength is the predictor of if deadlifts will be a good exercise for someone, just the same as hamstring strength will be a good predictor of people who won't tear their ACL. And if you have weak hamstrings, you're going to be at risk for ACL tears. The action off of the back of that should not be that you then avoid exercises and activities that could tear your ACL. The action should be you strengthen your hamstrings to mitigate the risk of future injury, just the same as you should strengthen your spinal erectors with movements that are inherently going to be hinge-based, because that's how you strengthen them and build up to something like a deadlift. Now, this one was particularly interesting to me as well. And it says, it's a study called Treating Persistent Low Back Pain with Deadlift Training, a single subject experimental design with 15-month follow-up. This is the weakest form of evidence, but I think it's interesting to point to nonetheless. This is someone with chronic discogenic related back pain. Discogenic pain could be disc herniation, a disc bulge. It could be a degenerative disc disease. It could just be arthritis of the low back. But they included deadlifts as part of the treatment plan and pointed to that as a successful method by which to get that person back to full function. When it comes to our back, I think we often sensationalize what the pain is and what a disc bulge is. It's really just another injury that could happen to your knee or your shoulder or anywhere else where you feel pain that will heal and you will be fine. In this person, they had ongoing discogenic problems with their intervertebral discs, and they could manage to rehab that even with deadlifts as a part of the program. And the authors of the study suggest that it was likely because deadlifts were part of the program. You know, if we look at exercises in particular and what can cause injury and what can't cause injury, any exercise done poorly, done with too high of a load, too high intensity, too high volume, what you're not ready for, any of those are going to cause you a risk of injury. And I'll point to a CNN Health article here, one of the worst articles I've ever seen, by Amy Schillinger. Feel free to tag her if you know her. But September 19th, 2017, posted 10 dangerous exercises that lead to injuries. So Robert Oberst, I totally understand what he's trying to say. I totally get not just going in and deadlifting heavy if you've never done it before, but learning to hinge is an important fundamental movement pattern. But let's look at the 10 dangerous exercises according to Amy Schillinger. And in order, I'm going to roll through these. Exercises you shouldn't do. And I'm not going to allow you to snip this. You should do all exercises. These are the exercises Amy Schillinger says you shouldn't do. Bicycle crunches, lat pull downs, kettlebell swings, bent over rows, Romanian deadlifts, overhead squats, backwards medicine ball rotation tosses as a sort of a weird throw in there, seated leg extension, pull-ups, and preacher curls. My point in sharing this is that everyone is going to say that this is a good exercise and this is a bad exercise. And anyone who says that is totally full of crap because you don't know who you're talking to. You don't know who the population is. When I give advice, I'll give advice on a broad stroke. Yep, you got to oversimplify. But to say these 10 exercises or deadlifts or squats or whatever, you can make an argument why you should do no exercise in the gym at all. And that would be a sound argument for a short-sighted person, because going to the gym is going to result in a higher risk of injury than not going to the gym. But not going to the gym is going to guarantee you injuries down the track. So we look at ourselves, you look at where you're strong, look at where you're weak, attack the areas that you're weak, turn your body into the best functional capacity unit that you possibly can, from an aerobic sense, from a strength sense, from a mobility sense to a reasonable degree, and you will be a productive member of society. Never forget 6 movement patterns: push, pull, squat, hinge, overhead press, and carry. do those 6 things. And if you can't, attack the thing that you can't and learn to do it. And you will be a great strength athlete. You'll be a great athlete, and you will be a great human being ready to contribute to the world for the rest of your life and support your family until the day that you die. Now, thank you very much for watching. We upload videos every single day. If you haven't subscribed already, click the subscribe button. The channel has exploded in the past year. We are 350% larger than when we started, and that's because of you guys. So please, if you could pop a comments down in the description, that would be very, very useful as well. As per usual, lift heavy, be kind, and we will catch you tomorrow.